And thank you for joining us this morning on Breakfast Central. Welcome to our viewers here in Nigeria and across the world, wherever you might be watching us from. Remember to always be a part of our conversation simply by joining us via social media at News Central TV. You could also, of course, leave a comment on the YouTube comment section if you're watching us online. Welcome once again. We hope that for the next 2 hours you enjoy the conversations that we will have with you. And just before we get to share with you what our top stories are and, of course, bring you breakfast headlines, one of the big conversations that is happening across Nigeria this morning is definitely in reactions to pictures posted by the FCT minister Nyesom Wike, where, of course, he went for his son's graduation. But it wasn't just him. Of course, his wife, George, was also there for his graduation, for the son's graduation, along with other, top politicians in Nigeria who also went to the UK to attend this graduation and celebrate this very, very beautiful moment for the family. And everyone is, of course, celebrating. Nigerians across the country also celebrating this very special moment for the for the FCT minister. But it was also very interesting, that a video was then released where Nyesom Wike, a couple of years back, while he was, I believe, still governor, was speaking about the idea of children schooling abroad, and he was raising many questions, as to why Nigerian politicians or Nigerians who will be sending their, kids abroad when they have universities here. He spoke about different, courses, and was asking, why will anybody go and study English abroad? Or anybody study this other language, or this other, course abroad? His son, of course, now just graduated abroad, studying law in this case. And I'm not sure if maybe there are not, any law schools in Nigeria, or maybe Nigerian universities don't teach law, but my very, very dear colleague, Olive Emodi, did study law here in Nigeria, amongst with many other people. And so, it once again is just, another reminder and another opportunity for you to see that, the words that Nigerian politicians speak really, a lot of times you should always take it with a pinch of salt. And, the state of Nigerian universities also would almost never improve. The cries of ASU, the cries of the Nigerian student, the cries of Nigerian parents, everybody would almost never be listened to because, at the end, most Nigerian politicians will all send their kids abroad to study. And it's not because, we don't have those courses here. It's just that, there's barely any respect for the Nigerian university. And there's a lot of hypocrisy going on, when we have these conversations. Olive, your law degree, was it gotten in Sweden or in Canada or in any of these foreign universities?
My law degree, what happened to it?
Did you get it abroad?
Well, unfortunately, we maybe couldn't afford. I don't have politician parents that could have sent me to get my law degree abroad. But jokes apart, I think that why this is a major topic of conversation is because there's a background to it. Excuse me. Now, you made reference to the video of Nyesom Wike speaking against this. If we dial back to some years ago, when Rotimi Amechi was governor of Rivers State, the Rivers State Sustainable Development Program sent over 2,000 students abroad to the UK, different parts of the world where they were studying different courses on a fully funded scholarship. Their school fees, accommodation, upkeep, everything covered by the Rivers State government. Rotimi Amechi then comes into power, complains about how they don't have enough from the FARC and the internally generated revenue. And as a result, they end it. In fact, at that point, I read one of the letters that one of the students at the time, I think sometime in 2016, his name is James Wanko, he wrote a letter to the governor of Rivers State, to Rotimi Amechi at the time. And it's detailed just how terrible things were for these students, how a number of them had been kicked out of school, or how many, a number of them couldn't feed. He even talked at this point that, he said that in the letter that at that point, they were facing the possibility of being taken to court because they hadn't yet paid their bills. So this was the reality of Rivers State students at the time who were on scholarship. And what was the way out that Rivers State had promised? He had said that they would manage to pay the school fees of those of them that were still in final year. Yeah. But all those that were not in final year, they would bring them back to Nigerian universities, fully funded scholarship, accommodation and everything, just the same way it was there, but this time around, you'll be back in Nigeria. And the parents were saying, how do you make it make sense? Some of these students are in their third year in Canada studying, and then you're bringing them back to River State. The curriculum is obviously different.
Yes.
So why are you doing this? So there was a lot of pushback. Unfortunately, they had to end the RSSDA scholarship program. This exactly is why people are foaming in the mouth because of this now. Because they're saying, if you at the time, when dollar was exchanging to naira at about 196 naira thereabouts, the state couldn't afford to send students abroad to study. Now in 2024-25, you're graduating your son, you're celebrating it, and you are proudly posting about it on social media when the exchange rate is well over 1,500.
Yep.
That this is
I thought it was 600 even.
I mean, I'm trying to just be safe,
yeah.
Right? But at the end of the day, this just shows the fact that things have gotten really bad and that they don't care. When we go back to 2022 again, there was a bill that was attempted to be put forward in the House to stop public office holders from sending their students abroad, sending their children or their wards abroad with public funds. The way these people kicked against it, said it's an infringement to their right of freedom, their freedom of movement and all the likes. They kicked against it, saying it should, in fact, it didn't even pass first reading. And the person who was pushing the bill said, I'm not saying you shouldn't send your children abroad. What I'm saying is if you have to send your children abroad as a public office holder, show evidence that it is your money and not state money. Whereas in 2024, we're seeing a leader, a governor who's paid his children's school fees up until university level.
University, yes. So
it's just it's a grim, unfortunate reality to see when you do a stark comparison to what these leaders say and what they do. And the current reality of Nigerians, it's reeking of insensitivity, especially because now things have been incredibly hard for Nigerians. And Nyesom Wike is not the only person, all of them.
No, it's not. It's
all
common.
Of them.
It's common culture. It's
yes, all of them send their kids abroad.
Let's also be fair. It's not just politicians. It's anybody who can afford it does it, right? But I feel like Nigerian politicians should at least have some level of shame when they post these pictures. This is nothing to celebrate. That, you've been governor for 8 years. There's no university that you've been able to set up well enough in the state that you were governor for 8 years. You were local government chairman. You were governor for 8 years in that state. You were Minister of State for Education. And there's nothing that you set up in your own country, your own state, that is good enough for your children to go to. And so at the end, you are boldly posting this picture. And just what you were just referring to on the Daily Post, in 2015, there's a news report that says here, Wike concludes plan to withdraw Rivers students on foreign scholarship. Right. This is just in 2015. It was published on the 3rd of December 2015.
So exactly, you ended that. So yes. I think that why this one is a major issue is because, yes, Nigerians have criticized politicians who send their kids abroad. But because this one, Nyesom Wike actively contributed to stopping other people's children from going abroad, and now he's benefiting from the same, institution that he has stopped others from going abroad. Many would then argue that, but he's not governor of Rivers State anymore. But he's not the minister of the FCT. He's still a politician, a serving minister. So in case you're wondering why this is making news, that's exactly why it's making news.
And another situation where you can see a complete reversal of what this person said a couple of years ago compared to what they're doing today. If you remember, while he was still governor, I believe, or just when he was about leaving office, when he was speaking about the APC, when he was saying boldly then that, the idea of working with the APC or joining the APC is like, living malaria and going to get cancer, if you remember it back then. Right now, I mean, you wouldn't say he's joined the APC now, but he's working in the APC government.
Can we say that he's not really? I mean, he has one leg in the PDP,
exactly.
One leg in the APC.
So it's the hypocrisy. It is the complete hypocrisy that you cannot just, not notice, with these things. And again, regardless of how, we explain these things, that if you're rich enough, then, yes, you may want to send your kids abroad. But it still looks very, very distasteful for Nigerian politicians to post these things. And there have been many of them that have shared these same type of pictures. I think Bukola Saraki, I believe, also shared, pictures. I'm not certain, but I think that he did. A while ago of his kids graduating from schools abroad. It is how completely distasteful it is that, and the clear sign that Nigerian universities would almost never get the attention that they need. Nigeria's education sector would almost never get the attention that it needs because these politicians almost will never build and develop the education sector to a state where their own children can go to school. There's pretty much the same thing with healthcare. And that's why whenever they're ill, you hear that they're in a hospital in Germany, they're in a hospital in London, a hospital in France, but you would never hear they're in Louth. You would never hear they're in, any FMC in any part of the country. They would never go to those places where they are, meant to be covering.
Our 19 flows from the head to the bottom. I mean, if we start from the very top, if we look at the last administration, even the current administration, how many of them, have you ever seen any of our presidents go to the Aso Rock Hospital when they have like medical situations that need to be attended to?
No.
First Lady complained about how very underfunded, how very ill-equipped the Aso Rock Hospital is. That's the former First Lady. So what are we talking about? It's the same thing that we see amongst all politicians. It's the norm. But like you said, what Nigerians will expect, which is one of the major criticisms the current administration has, faced, the fact that as much as you're telling people to cut their, their spending and to adjust, you should be seen to be doing same. And in the cases when you are not doing same, don't now rub it in the faces of Nigerians. I think that's what is generating all of this. But Nigerians have spoken about it, and much later today, we'll share with you what Nigerians are saying about Nyesom Wike. But for now, let's share with you our top stories. Permanent Secretary clarifies mandate to revive Nigeria Air. Well, this Nigeria Air conversation comes back again in January 2025. National Assembly expresses displeasure over capital budget implementation. And of course, Kano lawmaker receives abducted children from police. Away from that, we would also be looking at Showore Nigerians slam Wike over son's graduation. It will also be one of the things we'll look at what Nigerians are saying, and then we'll review the newspaper front pages. All these and more on Breakfast Central.
Now, welcome to Breakfast Headlines. We begin in eastern Nigeria, where no fewer than 18 persons have been reportedly killed in coordinated attacks across several communities in the Osu local government area of Imo State on Sunday. The killings occurred in at least 6 communities. The victims were left with deep machete wounds, sparking fear and outrage among locals. The former chairman of the National or Nigerian Human Rights Commission, Professor Chidi Odinkalu, who hails from Osu, brought attention to the development via his X account on Monday. The tragedy followed the annual Masquerade Festival celebrated in Umuhu, Amoku, Amebe, and neighboring communities. And also in the news, the Nigerian police force says that it has arrested 60-year-old Idris Usman in connection with the alleged trafficking of 59 male children who were found being transported from Kano to Nasarawa State. The FCT Commissioner of Police, Tunji Disu, while parading the suspect at the Abuja Police Command, says that the children aged between 4 and 12 years old were being transported in a white Peugeot J5 bus under the guise of being taken for training. He adds that the suspects, the vehicle, and all the children are currently in police custody. And also in the news, an Ikeja Special Offences Court has dismissed the plea application filed by the former governor of the Central Bank of Nigeria, Godwin Emefiele, challenging its jurisdiction to hear the $4.5 billion and 2.8 billion naira fraud case brought by the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission. Delivering the ruling on Wednesday, Justice Raman Oshodi held that the court had jurisdiction over counts 8 to 26, citing relevant legal authorities and evidence presented in the case file. But the court struck out counts 1 to 4, which centered on abuse of office through the allocation of foreign exchange without bidding, noting that such actions were not punishable under Nigerian law. The judge subsequently adjourned the trial to February 24, 2025 for continuation. Now, away from Nigeria, the United States has accused Sudan's Rapid Support Forces, RSF, and allied militia groups of committing genocide, citing widespread atrocities against civilians effectively imposing sanctions on RSF leader Mohamed Daglo, also known as Himeti. The sanctions freeze any U.S. assets belonging to Daglo and bar him from entering the United States. 7 RSF-owned companies in the United Arab Emirates and 1 individual were also sanctioned for procuring weapons for the paramilitary group. Secretary of State Antony Blinken said the leader of the RSF has repeatedly broken commitments to protect Sudanese civilians, including those made in the 2023 Jeddah Declaration and the 2024 Code of Conduct. And that's all on Breakfast Headlines at this hour. Let's now move back to Breakfast Central and get into our top stories. I am Osaugie Ogbowa.
And now on to a bittersweet report. The Nigeria police, alongside a lawmaker represented Kano, has initiated efforts to reunite 59 children allegedly trafficked from Kano State. Now, this, of course, happened. We did report this in the news when we're taking the breakfast headlines this morning. And now we have a more detailed report. This arrest followed the arrest of a suspected trafficker, Idris Ibrahim, by the FCT Police Command on his way to Nasarawa State. Now, we gave you the details of this, but we have a fuller report, and our correspondent, Idong Joseph, brings us more in this report.
The children, aged between 4 and 12 years, were transported in this vehicle on their way to Nasarawa State from Kano. However, luck was not on their side as they were intercepted by police officers along the Abuja-Kano road on January 6th. The police said that the incident, categorized as a case of suspected child abuse and human trafficking, is due to a lack of proper documentation or parental consent.
The vehicle was driven by one Ali Ibrahim, a male resident of Kano State, accompanied by his motorboy named Azan Ibrahim, also of Kano State. The bus was found to be transporting 59 male children aged between 4 to 12 years old.
However, 60-year-old Idris Ibrahim has denied the allegations, claiming that he sought the parents' consent before moving the children to Nasarawa State for Quranic education.
He said that he collected them from their parents. He's teaching them Islamic education.
Immediately after Ibrahim was paraded, a lawmaker from Kano State visited the FCT Police Command to facilitate the release of the children. He attributes the issue to a practice prevalent in the northern region of the country.
And I know their mission is to go for Quranic education. Then they transfer them to police headquarters, and after interrogation and the questions, then we now agree that they will release them to social welfare of the FCTs, and they release them to me to take them back home.
The lawmaker is calling on the government to do more to stop the trend.
You know, naturally, it is in our own culture, in our own tradition. Now we are in transition. We want to change the narration, and you need to do a lot. We need government intervention. We need society intervention, and we need individual parent intervention to stop it. Let us devise another way of teaching Quran.
While the police have reiterated their commitment to protecting vulnerable groups from exploitation and abuse, the lawmaker is calling for collective efforts to eliminate any form of child abuse. In Abuja for News Central, I am Idong Joseph.
Great job, Idong Joseph. Thank you very much for reporting that. I would say that it is bittersweet. Bitter because when investigations are concluded, we find out that this was an actual case of trafficking. It reveals how much of a problem trafficking still is. And I do not know, I mean, the man there, Ibrahim Idris, gave his excuse is that he got permission from the parents to move the children to Nasarawa for Islamic studies. So there's no Islamic studies in Kano State. They don't have enough. That's why you get 59 children, you get permission from their parents to move them to Nasarawa State. I think how it makes me feel is just, again, highlighting the challenge that we have with our education sector and the fact that we still do have a trafficking problem. And I hope that this is, investigated to a logical conclusion and that, if he needs to be thrown behind bars, he should be thrown behind bars if found guilty.
The world generally has a severe child trafficking problem. So yes, I think it's best to wait for investigations. Let's see where this leads. Hopefully, Young Joseph also follows up on the story and sees, what is eventually uncovered. But yes, the world has a severe child trafficking problem. It's not just in Nigeria, in different parts of Africa, in different parts of the West. And it doesn't look like it is stopping anytime soon. I'm happy that at least we have saved these kids now, if eventually that's what it turned out to be.
Reunited with their parents.
Exactly. But, it's a severe problem that is not spoken about enough. I don't think it is spoken about enough. If you look at, I think there was, even in the UK, there's a case now that became popular a couple of days ago about child grooming or something like that. I need to get the facts of the case. But it's quite popular across the world.
Right.
And it's not spoken about enough. And yes, a lot of children are trafficked from Africa to different parts of the world for different, reasons.
And a lot of children are even trafficked from Africa to other countries here in Africa. I think the areas that we don't look at it from is when we look at things like house helps. Those who have house help, you pay somebody, they'll bring a child from one of the neighboring African countries, and then you, in your mind, you say, after all, I'm giving the child a house, I'm buying the child clothes, I'm sending their agents or their parents money.
Yeah.
So the child is here working for you. A child that can't even take care of themselves, they're busy taking care of your children. You're part of the problem. And the thing is, because it's become like a cultural thing. So I think there's also the influence of culture and not knowing where to draw the divide, because people go to the village and say, oh, I'm going to pick this, my little niece, to come and stay with us in the city. I'll train her, but she will take care of my kids. So somehow, somewhere we blur the lines, and I'm not quite sure where we blur the lines, or if we know where not to blur the lines when it comes to, at what point does it become trafficking?
So there's that. There's also the ones that are more severe, where you have dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands of children that are used in sex work, by pedophiles, in different parts of the world. These children are, almost never found. And there are too many cases, just too many cases in recent history, and of course, maybe in the 60s, 70s, 50s. I did speak about, there's a Dutroux case that happened in Belgium that I remember is very popular, and many others. So I feel like those ones are even like the more severe cases that are still very, very active in our world today. And every Nigerian child needs to be protected as much as we can.
Absolutely, we do. Anyway, we'll keep up with that case, and of course, when our correspondent, Young Joseph, has more information in that regard, we'll bring it to you. But now let's move on to other stories. The Senate and the House of Representatives have requested that the economic team of the current administration of President Bola Tinubu take immediate action in allocating additional funds for capital projects, as this will be a significant means for the public to experience the impact of government. The federal administration came under fire from the National Assembly for implementing the 2024 capital budget, claiming that it was extremely low and that the situation was unacceptable.
Well, the National Assembly said that there was a significant disparity between the amount of recurring expenditure and capital expenditure, as well as the low amount of funds released for capital projects for ministries, departments, and agencies in the ongoing 2024 budget. And let's also mention that the economic team, led by the Minister of Finance and Coordinating Minister of the Economy, Wale Edun, showed that the 2024 budget performance was 43%, with recurrent expenditure achieving 100%, while the capital budget only managed 25% performance. The Assembly highlighted a low level of funds released for capital projects for ministries, departments, and agencies in the 2024 budget that is ongoing. Now, joining us, we have Nameka Obiariri, who, of course, will be x-raying these issues, for us. Good morning, and thanks for joining us, sir.
Thank you, Asare. Thank you for having me.
Good to have you. I think we should start with the, budget performance of 2024, and, just help us, understand what exactly it means when they say budget performance is at 43%. Recurrent expenditure, I think it was, at 25 or 100%, and then capital expenditure 25%. What does this mean, for Nigeria?
Sorry, I mused when I saw the huffing and puffing from National Assembly. Forget all the huffing and puffing. There's nothing happening there. And you talked about budget performance, recurrent expenditure 100%, and then capital expenditure 23%. How much was even provided in the capital expenditure in the races of it? So again, we play too much in this country. We joke too much in this land. You know, when we decide to be serious in this country, we'll be very, very serious. Looking at that budget, how much was provided for capital expenditure? In the first instance, looking at the kind of capital infrastructure deficit we have in Nigeria, we have in this country an infrastructure development master plan that was put together with the support of the World Bank that stated it clearly that for us to be able to move Nigerian economy from the current world levels, the world fourth level to even the second economic level, second world economic level, we must at least invest $100 billion in capital investments annually over the next 30 years, $3 trillion. That was what that report, and that report went further to show sector by sector things that we need to do. Even at my personal level with my team, we've done a report on what we think can be done if we want to bring the Nigerian infrastructure deficit to the level where it will bring Nigeria even to the level of the second world economy. So how much did they even provide in 2023? Are they saying that the National Assembly, are they saying that they are not aware of that World Bank report prepared with that report that was prepared under Ogonji-Iweala? Are they not aware that for us to be able to fix the capital decay, the infrastructure decay in Nigeria, that we must have to invest $100 billion, both from the physical side and from non-physical side, using diverse PPP initiative? A serious National Assembly, that's what we should be discussing. There's a report. What is our immediate plan? What are our medium-term plan to ensure that we put in place the policy, the programs, the security architecture in Nigeria to be able to attract, both from the physical and non-physical side, capital investment of $100 billion. We must have capital investment, $100 billion across the 3 tiers of government for us to be able to even start. So all this huffing and puffing, all this, there is the party game. And I can bet you, if you look deeper, you discover that maybe it may be a case of, oh, our committee was not allotted much. This one was not allotted much. And they just invited them to have hand-on-hand discussion. By next 2 or 3 days now, everything will be resolved. And we continue on the same trajectory. How was even the budget derived? Oh, see, I will advise Nigerians, especially the media people, to take time to go through that budget. Not just at the federal level, but at the state and local government level. In some states, you will see clearly, in some states like Anambra in the southeast, that provided 200 million naira to refurbish licensing offices in Abuja and in Lagos. That's a state today that is ravaged by insecurity. It is the same thing everywhere. You saw the other provisions for almost about 4 billion by Ministry of Works to do a helipad. So the question is that is the same part of capital infrastructure that we're talking about. Nigeria today, we have so much terrible road network across Nigeria. Pakistan, that is at the same level with Nigeria demographically, has almost about 120 to 150,000 kilometer tarred road. Nigeria would not even have up to 60,000 square kilometer tarred road. And half of those roads are in very dilapidated states. We expect a country that has 17 million housing deficit, that would require about 600 trillion naira to fix. What are our plans to fix this? Okay. A country that has road deficit that is so huge that would require almost about $3, $5, $10 billion investment every year. How do we put it in place? They are not discussing these things. All these things you've seen are huffing and puffing. Forget it.
Mr. Berry, I'd like you to speak some more to the 100 billion capital expenditure across the 3 tiers of government that you speak about. You know, what will the picture of that look like for us?
Okay, Olive, let me give you an example. United Kingdom, 243,000 square kilometer landmass. They have a rail network of almost about 16,000 kilometers. 16,000 square kilometers. South Africa controls almost 85% of the rail network in Africa. For Nigeria to be able to have rail network that provides critical infrastructure for transport logistics, we must have at least 5,000 to 12,000 square kilometer rail network, standard gauge network. I've always taken time within any time I come to enunciate the fact that the most lucrative rail network that we have it today. Rail route, Lagos, Shagamu, Ijebu-Ode, Ore, Asaba, Benin, Asaba, Onitsha, Owerri, to Port Harcourt, Seko Bakaba, Umuahia, Okigwe, Enugu, go back to Abakaleke, a part of Ebonyi State, then come back again, join Onitsha, and then to Asaba. It's 817 kilometers. It will take $5.2 billion to do. A serious government will focus on this, and it can be done in 4 years under a design, build, operate, and transfer scheme. 45 years. We have we've mapped it out. If we decide today we want to do $12 billion rail network in the next 5 to 10 years, only for Sarege, I can show you clearly how we can do this, where the monies will come from, how we can structure it under a 45. Let me tell you, that Lagos to Port Harcourt rail route that covers the southeast, south, and southwest will require, in fact, that traffic alone, that corridor alone has almost about 200 million tons of cargo traffic per annum, 300 to 500 million passenger traffic per annum. It will catalyze massive infrastructure development across that corridor, including housing. They are not sure about it. On the road network, we know today that if we want to do road projects across the southeast, across the southwest, across the north, linking the northwest to the southeast or to other part of Nigeria, we will plan it, we will execute it. On agriculture, I will keep on talking about it, how we can create agro clusters, industrial clusters, backed with agro rangers across the various wards in Nigeria that will attract capital investment of $15 billion, that will catalyze 20 million jobs, that will bring about $200 billion into Nigerian economy every year, which will help us even to achieve price and price stability. From different sectors, telecommunication, health, education, National Assembly should be concerned. How do we amend the Constitution to make it compulsory? For us to be able to build up Nigeria, we must achieve literacy level from the current pathway level to 98% over the next 10 years. We must make it compulsory. Every borrowing and every revenue, we must invest 25% on education. When you make it a constitutional matter, no governor, no local government chairman, no person will want to divert money or manipulate it. Yeah. But leaving it to the whims and caprices of people who don't even understand the linkage between poverty and illiteracy and insecurity, it will never happen.
Yeah,
so,
Mr. Barry.
Nigeria is one country that ticks the right boxes to become a top 10 global biggest economy in the next 10 years. When we are serious, we will be serious.
Yeah, Mr. Barry, I mean, it sounds like, you are more inclined towards, PPP, arrangements in fixing some of the infrastructure deficit that we lack in the country. But if the Nigerian government doesn't agree with that, and it still has this deficit, in capital project funding, it very likely would, maybe need more loans. The amount of money that you're, talking about now that would be required to fix our health care and our road infrastructure and railway infrastructure, very likely, of course, would come through taking more loans from foreign donors. And so, I mean, where do you think we can get the money from to increase our capital expenditure without taking loans?
Oh, sorry, that's a question that we need to ask us. I can show you where we can get the money. Osarege, our working capital is oil and gas. And we have refused to appreciate the fact that there has been a massive decay in that sector over the last 9 years. We are where we are today because of the massive decay, inefficiencies, thievery, and all manner of propaganda in that sector. If we want to generate $60 billion today into this economy, we know what to do. The other day I overheard them discussing that they want to sell 10% of federal government holding on LNG, which is very wicked. LNG is the only corporation that is working so efficiently. LNG is currently doing 60% of its capacity instead of 100%, and they know why it is doing so. It does not have enough gas supply to even feed the existing train, and is about to roll out 1 or 2 other trains. A very serious government should see what they can do to provide gas supply for LNG and to enhance and increase its capacity. Knowing so well that Europe and America we are looking for alternative sources for gas away from Russia. A serious government will have been looking at how do we unbundle the NNPC? How do we destroy the big elephant that is destroying this economy in such a way, constructive destruction, in such a way that it will become efficient like NLNG and Petrobras, and we'll share with them what to do. As of today, NNPC only serves as a conduit of corruption and inefficiency in Nigeria. In fact, it's the weakest link. It was easy for Sanusi and even Emefiele to defend the Naira. Despite the fact, yes, under Buhari, they destroyed the whole world, they did everything. Under Sanusi, it was easy. Under Charles Olude, because over $3 billion was being paid into the Federation account from sale of crude oil. There was no leakages under Obasanjo. And therefore, we could maintain that kind of stability over those periods. But today, the central bank really gets up to $500 billion. So where we can also get dollars to defend and achieve price and currency stability. What we will do basically, unbundle the place. Federal Minister of Finance Incorporated, Federal Minister of Petroleum Incorporated, sell down 70% to core investors, three core investors, 10%, 40% to Nigerians, and list it on the floor. They should do IPO of $20 billion. What if we open up that place? Watch it in the next 6 months to 1 year. We will bring in efficiency and transparency. You will see us ramp up output. If we have 2.4 million, 3.3 million barrels of crude oil and condensate production every year, we won't be looking for money or borrowing for money for infrastructure development. If we have efficiency such a way that we have $20 billion coming there every year, Total went to Angola to do $6 billion. We don't even need Total or anybody to invest here. All we need is technology. Nigerians is diaspora, we can mobilize them under social arrangement to invest in that critical sector. If we put in place security in Nigeria, I tell you of a truth, we can mobilize nothing less than $20 to $50 billion annually into the agro sector and the agro value chain, linking upstream to manufacturing. And we will create so much wealth and so much jobs in this land. The same thing applies in every sector. See, I sit down here, I feel like crying because I see a paradise being turned into hell and Hades by a bunch of incompetent human beings across the 3 tiers. These guys do not care. I tell you of a truth. If Michael Opara was to wake up again, like Jokonde and Sabon Bakwe, and you hand over this economy back to them, in 10 years, we will have a $1.52 trillion economy. What is lacking in Nigeria is the political will. What is lacking in Nigeria is the sincerity. What is lacking in Nigeria is the honesty. I'm sorry to use this word. 99% of the political class see political office and political position as a venue to just show up their stagnant economic life, to drink 40-year Glenfiddich, live frivolously and perversively, and destroy the rest of them. It is so painful. A country that, there's no country like Nigeria, no country ever blessed by God like Nigeria. What is lacking is leadership. And most unfortunately, we don't even have the followership. A majority of Nigerians are so ignorant. They don't even know what good governance is. What is human development index? Life expectancy today in Nigeria is 54 years. In Singapore, it is 82 years. In 1967, Singapore life expectancy was 55 years. What did they do? They massively pursued education, massively pursued merit over mediocrity. Look at where Singapore is today. On education, you see where we are today. Literacy level is so low. On GDP per capita, Nigeria is one of the lowest. 197 Nigerians cannot even adequately feed without borrowing, without being humiliated. 197 million people. This is a country where in Singapore, 1 out of every 15 million persons is a $2 millionaire. We can today, if we decide today in the next 10 years, we'll not have one single poor Nigeria. We can easily achieve it.
So, I mean, from what you've described, and, the way that the 2025 budget has also been, put together, it's looking like, 2026 budget will pretty much be the same thing, and 2027. There would not be any significant improvement in capital infrastructure, in infrastructure generally, in Nigeria under the Bola Tinubu administration. Is that what you also expect, would happen?
It's even beyond the Bola Tinubu administration. Across the 3 tiers of government. Take our time to look at. In fact, you know one thing that shocks me? Most of the governments in Nigeria across the tiers are investing so much on propaganda, are investing so much on social media lethality. There are 3 basic aspects when you want to measure good governance. You measure the living standard of the people, measured by poverty. Today, by World Bank standard, 197 million Nigerians are under poverty. Go and check. It's a fact. Access to education. Literacy level in Nigeria is so poor. And see, okay, also again, what does it take for the National Assembly to amend the Constitution? They can do it within 1 month. Get 24 state assemblies to concur. President signs it off. 25% of all our earnings, all our budgets, all our expenditures, all our borrowings must be invested in education. What is the big deal about it? Awolowo did it. Michael Okpara them did it. Go and check the records. What is the essence of today? If we decide today that we want to increase salaries of medical practitioners and teachers, make it minimum of 300,000, the brightest and the smartest of Nigerians will go into those sectors. There was a time in this country, the brightest and the smartest of Nigerians were going into education, into health sector. In fact, if you look at the developed economies, STEM, the smartest people go into pure sciences. The second smartest people will go into applied sciences. In Nigeria, it is the reverse because we have so much structural, constitutional, and physical deformities. And somebody talked about, for you to even amend the constitution and rearrange the physical arrangement, you must have people in governance who understand governance in the first place, who are very honest, who are very patriotic, who are very empathetic and compassionate, like Michael Okpara, Lateef Jokonde, and Simon Bakwe. As of today, look around you. All you see are vain men, vain women who are only after what they eat, play politics. There is no patriot. Whenever you see them spabbing and fighting and huffing and puffing, it's all about, oh, they've cut my own share. They've not given us enough share. National Assembly just there to overstamp the executive. The same thing in the state and local government chairman. I don't see any light anywhere. I don't see it anywhere. I'm sorry to be this pessimistic. Because the truth is, and all of us know the truth, even they know I'm telling the truth. They know because behind the scene, I receive phone calls from some of them. Hypocritically, they know the truth. And until we begin to tell ourselves the truth you know and apply, the knowledge you know and apply is what will save us. And I say it to you, if they repent today and decide to do the right things, in 10 years, people will queue up at embassies in the US, UK, and Canada to come to Nigeria.
All right. Well, so many angles have been highlighted here. And again, like you said if they repent, the question is if that will even happen anytime soon. Nnaemeka Berry, it's always a delight to have you. Thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, my sister.
Okay, we'll go on a very quick break, and all right, let's just go straight to our next conversation. And this time around, we're looking at Nigeria Air. The newly appointed Permanent Secretary of the Federal Republic, Ministry of Aviation and Aerospace Development, Ibrahim Kano, has clarified his earlier remarks regarding the revival of the National Carrier Project, addressing widespread speculation and inquiries. The newly appointed Permanent Secretary statement that he received a directive from President Bola Tinubu to restart the National Air Carrier Project was misunderstood, he says.
Now, although he said in his interview with the press that he had been given a mandate by President Bola Tinubu to revive the national flight carrier, he has also come out to say, and I quote, "For the avoidance of doubt, I never said that there is a mandate to revive the botched Nigeria Air deal with Ethiopian Airlines." While going back and forth, experts in the aviation sector have continued to wonder if Nigeria is slowly becoming a country that pats corrupt persons on the back for having squandered the nation's resources and budget allocation and denied the state of national development in the case, for example, of the former aviation minister. We're joined this morning to discuss, well, Nigeria's aviation situation and the possibility of a national carrier by Air Commodore Ademola Onitiju, retired. Good morning, and thanks very much for joining us.
Good morning. How are you?
Very well. Thanks for joining us.
Viewers.
Yes.
It's a pleasure being here.
Yeah, I think, we'll probably just start with, broadly on the Nigeria Air project. I'm sure you followed the controversies that surrounded it when Hadi Sirika had, of course, promised that it will be delivered. And they launched some airline just before the exit of former President Muhammadu Buhari. And that eventually turned out to be, borderline, a scam. What do you think we should still be having that conversation as it is, looking at Nigeria's aviation sector? Is the Nigeria Air project something that we should really just put on, on the back burner for now?
Definitely not.
Why?
You, like in your intro, you mentioned it as having been a scam. So if it is a scam, what are we doing with it? What are we waiting? What are we going to do with it? You are aware that the Economic Financial Crime Commission is already after those who are involved in it, and is still under investigation. It's also before a court of law. The facts are in the public domain that it was a scam. So if it is a scam, it's best discarded. As for the newly appointed PAMSEC Ministry of Aviation and Aerospace Development's comments, he has since corrected the view that it wasn't, say, a mandate. But generally, at the Aviation Roundtable initiative, of which I am a president, we've always maintained that as desirable as a national career is, we have to be careful. We're not a nation that goes by rules most, if not all of the time. The experience of Nigeria in terms of government and business has not been palatable. There has been poor institutional governance, and on the other side, too, corporate governance principles are flagrantly disregarded. So in such an environment, it's bad business for government to be in business. Other nations that are still having national career, they have the wherewithal, and their priorities are minimal, so to speak. If you look at the Middle Eastern countries like Qatar, the United Arab Emirates, and probably Kuwait, they are the ones that are really fronting for that. Even on the African continent here, Ethiopian here, they have over time perfected corporate governance principles. We lack that here. There are political interferences here and there, and failure to appoint boards as prescribed by law that are supposed to be the policy-making body for such institutions. We have not been doing that. But we can have a national career as an element of national pride, but make it private sector driven, you know? And,
yeah, but
presently,
so another thing to, that I feel is important to, we want to have a national carrier. It would make us look good, no doubt. It would maybe also be recorded as one of the wins and the achievement of, whichever government is in office at that time. But is it really a priority at this time? Like, if you look at what, Nigeria currently is dealing with, Nigeria's economic challenges, infrastructural challenges, there's so much, that we have piled up, that must be sorted out somehow, some way to make this country work. Will a national carrier come up in your top 20 things that any administration should attend to at this point?
Again, you are correct. It is not our priority. And again, you violated the issues. The aviation infrastructure is yet to meet what it ought to be. And that is the area we should accord priority. I've had the privilege to speak at a forum where the Minister of Aviation, Festus Keyamo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, was, and I told him that yes, all these efforts you have been making, diplomatic shuttle to aircraft manufacturers, lessors, and many others, are going to be maybe a waste. Look back here. There is much more to do. There is need to improve aviation infrastructure, and there must be a deliberate government policy to grow the sector. Without that, the operating condition presently is harsh. I advocated alongside the association I lead, that is the Aviation Safety Roundtable Initiative, that the government could bring down the price of airfare as a deliberate policy. All it needs to do is to partner or encourage refiners in the country, at least for now, being headed by Dangote, and now we are told that NNPC, Porakot, and Wari are working, but we are concerned about those who are of the capacity to produce aviation fuel. If you can reduce the cost of aviation fuel, price tickets will come down. If you can frontally address the issue of maintenance and its requirements of Forex, if you make a deliberate effort to ensure that foreign exchange requirements that are meant for the use of aviation industry are given preferential treatment, you could have a time frame to do that. Because the idea is get the aviation infrastructure in place, get the sector well organized. It catalyzes the economy, the growth and development of tourism, so many things, logistics. It puts certainty into planning.
All right.
And there is no alternative for it.
Okay.
You know? So those are the things we've been advocating.
All right. We'd like to please ask, sir, if you can sit back a little so that the camera doesn't cut off your head from the shot, because we're only seeing from your forehead down.
Oh, okay.
All right, great. That works. Thank you.
Is it any better now?
Yes, it's much better. Thank you. Now, just to quickly ask, what are we ever going to get to the conclusion of the Hadi Sirika case, of what happened with Nigeria? Is there really going to be any finality to that? Would he be made to answer questions for that, or is that no longer important?
Unfortunately, we have developed a culture of absence of consequences for bad behavior. And which is there in the public domain. Institutions are not performing what they are supposed to perform. By that I mean, the judiciary and the investigative authorities, if they will come out clean and do things the way it ought to be done, and if there are consequences for bad behavior once it is proven, it will deter others. So it's difficult for me to tell you whether you get to a finality. Anything can happen in Nigeria, sadly so. But we need to chart a new course. Let's have a new beginning. Anyone that takes a country of over 200 million for a ride should be made to pay for it if proven and established using the due process of law. So that's what I think that's my response to that.
Okay. And I'd like to also get a sense of what your thoughts are regarding how the aviation sector has fared so far, looking especially at the past year, 2024, and the expectations for what 2025 should look like.
But from the consumer perspective, an average consumer wanted to pay maybe a relatively reasonable amount, but it has been astronomical, the increase here. And those are the things that we at ART are advocating, that government should make deliberate policies that will enable the environment to be better for the operators. You can do that within a time frame. You can reduce charges, you can suspend charges, you can deliberately, like I said earlier, cost the price of aviation fuel for domestic operators only. You can cost them to introduce a discriminatory amount. You can still sell aviation fuel for 400 naira or less. All our negotiation, there will be concessions for such arrangements. And if they are paying less for fuel, which takes a huge chunk of their operating costs, and the maintenance too, you are deliberate in allowing them Forex at fairly reasonable rate, as will enable them grow, because it's deliberate. You are the government. The entire Nigeria is your domain, and you are there to serve the people for the betterment of life of the people. So all such things, if put in place, it can be better.
Yeah, I mean, what advice would you maybe also give to the current Minister for Aviation, Festus Keyamo? Nigerians, of course, I know you did speak about this earlier, but Nigerians are still worried about, air safety and, ensuring that we continue to keep this record of no, safety issues in a couple of years now. But what advice would you give to Festus Keyamo?
I will tell him, like I've always said, the deliberate policy to improve aviation infrastructure. We should upgrade and ensure that instrument landing system, particularly now that you are having a season in the country, You should improve on that. You should cause NIMET as much as possible to be an integral part of the aviation industry by providing safe and accurate weather predictions and other meteorological services. You will empower it to be able to do that at any point in time when it is required. And like I said, safety, of course, we've been up and doing. I think you can commend the SAA for that. So far, so good, and the SAIB. But we can do more, like we have always advocated. We want, for us in the aviation roundtable, we are concerned that deliberate policy to improve these things rather than pursue revenue should be the aim and should be the objective. It's good it's done some diplomatic shuttle to make planes available. But when the planes come here, planes are best utilized flying in the air, not on ground. Schedules, sunset airports, improve them such that people can travel there and get there by 12 midnight or even later, especially the major airports, So if we improve infrastructure, all sorts will be possible. The aircraft available, flight delays will be reduced, cancellations will be reduced, and the consumer will be happier for it.
I think
the Nigerian economy will improve. Tourism will be better.
And, that's the main complaint, really. What you've just highlighted. When it comes to consumer, as a consumer, the main complaint would be flight delays, flight cancellations, and the fact that some of these flight delays and cancellations happen, and there's really no refund, and the airlines will keep promising and promising. We've seen a number of airlines being called out on social media for not being able to keep up their own end of the their own end of the agreement. I mean, if you cancel or you reschedule a flight, it's not on the customer, that's on you. But yes, we're certainly looking forward to stronger policies being implemented to ensure that the aviation sector, is being held to higher standards. But so far, would you say Festus Keyamo is doing a good job?
Well, so far, so good, in fairness to him. So far, so good. But he could do more. That's it.
Okay.
Public office for service. Go there, render the best that you can. Do your bit, others will continue. So far for us, I think so far so good, but he needs to do more. As for the issue of the refund and all, the Consumer Protection Department and the Civil Aviation Authority have, I think, to a large extent, addressing claims of people. It is true, it's not been 100%, but at least it's a good starting point. But like I said earlier, absence of consequences, which has virtually become a culture here, is what emboldens people to do wrong things. If anyone does that, or if any airline does that, that is adequately sanctioned through penal compensations, because hardly, some of the time, you can hardly compensate the passenger who is afflicted in terms of probably if mother is sick, he or she wants to be on her bedside, flight cancel, you don't get there. Wedding for your daughter, flight cancel. These are things that you cannot really quantify in terms of money. But then, if you are up and doing in terms of enforcement and protection of consumers, it will deter, airlines from such. But again, the environment needs to be improved along the lines I've earlier suggested.
Yeah, and of course, the cost of air travel is also something that, bothers many Nigerians, that of course, the consumers that you've spoken about. What possibilities are there of reducing the cost of air travel in Nigeria today?
The cost of travel?
Yes, the cost of air travel, yes.
I've addressed that. I told you that as it is now, the purchasing power has reduced for the average Nigerian. And like other sectors, government ought to deliberately address issues in aviation, call it aviation palliative, in the light of what I said earlier. By that I mean, it is done globally. You protect your economy. It is allowed. You could, like I said, Dangote is a good one for us. By that I mean the refinery, it produces aviation fuel. So, and then it's buying in Naira. There has to be that handshake, a strong one at that, by the government. You will cost Dangote by whatever it is to sell at maybe $300 Naira. for local operators only. And you sort out the taxes, cost of production issues between yourselves behind the stage. When that is low, and you, to some extent, for a given time frame, if you suspend or halve the charges, aeronautical and navigational charges, and other facility charges that are being currently added to the bill, the prices, they wouldn't have a choice but come down because it's a delivery policy. You can grow the aviation sector within 24 months when you have such in place.
Well, the current administration has, I think, another 2 years. So hopefully they can do all that they need to do to ensure that the aviation sector at the end of this administration is a lot better. I mean, you say 24 months is enough time. I believe they should still have as much as that. Thank you very much for joining us this morning, Air Commodore Ademola Onitiju. We definitely have enjoyed having you here with us.
It's my pleasure.
All right. As we wrap up this morning's conversation, it's important to announce to you that Oxford Dictionary, the Oxford English Dictionary, has been revised to include some Nigerian words, and it would interest you to note some of the words that have been included in the dictionary. We've seen words like Jakpa, Jakpa 419, and this was, of course, reported by Gatekeepers News. It was reported that Kingsley Ugwanyi, lecturer at the University of Nigeria and a consultant for the Oxford English Dictionary, has played a significant role in this update. Not only have these words been included, but if you search, you would hear his voice pronouncing these words. Let's run you through a few of these words. 419, Abi, Adire, Agberu, area boy, cross carpet, cross carpeting, Eba, Edo. Why is Edo in the...
Cross carpeting?
Yeah.
Is that a Nigerian word?
I don't know. Cross carpeting, dropping from political party to one political party to another political party.
It was called potting.
Wow.
I think Yahoo Boy was also on...
Yahoo Boy.
Yeah.
No, yes, Yahoo Boy is there.
Yeah.
Yahoo is there. Yan Dust is there. Niger, that one should definitely be there. Kobo, Kanuri, Japa as a verb, and Japa as a noun. Janded, Jand as a verb, Jand as a noun. There's several other words there. Quite interesting, don't you think? Which words do you think they should have put that you don't know if it's there? I don't know if the word chook is there, but chook just sounds... like, why is this cloth chooking me? It's like the tailor forgot the pin inside the cloth and the pin is chooking me. Doesn't chook sound like an English
I think Chris
word?
is there already.
I'm not quite sure, but maybe it should be. I don't know. But yeah, Chris sounds like a nice word.
Yeah, I think, well, it's probably already an English word. I'm not sure.
Wow. Okay, let us know what words you think should have been included in the Oxford English Dictionary. What Niger words should have been included? I said chook. Let us know what your own words are. Tweet at us individually or at News Central TV. Let's share with you a recap of the conversations we've had this morning and also let you know what's coming up next. This morning, Permanent Secretary clarifies mandate to revive Nigeria Air, saying he did not receive such instruction from President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. National Assembly expresses displeasure over capital budget implementation, and Jakpa Agberu 419 added to Oxford Dictionary. Again, what words do you think should be added? But that's great to see Nigeria on the global spotlight. Let's share what's coming up next.
Sure, Nigerians and others slam Nyesom Wike over his son's graduation pictures, and also the newspaper front pages, major stories making headlines across Nigeria. Today, we'll also be sharing with you what Nigerians are saying.
Thank you for joining us today on Breakfast Central. If you're just joining, not to worry. You, of course, will be meeting the newspaper reviews, and for the rest that you've missed, you can catch up on YouTube. But we'll be joined this morning by Mr. Akatugba Theophilus. Good morning. Good to have you.
Good morning.
I wanted to Digwe.
Happy New Year to you.
We've not seen this year.
No.
Happy New Year.
Yeah.
It just feels like, I don't know, maybe we don't particularly feel the New Year like others because we worked during the holidays, so it doesn't feel very much New Year-ish, but Happy New Year. Let's start off with the Punch newspaper this morning. On the front page of the Punch newspaper, the big story there says, federal government 9 billion naira e-border project fails to stop bandits and illegal aliens Is that what we are calling them now? All right. Illegal Niger, Cameroon immigrants infiltrate Jigawa, Taraba, others. Borders automated, insists Interior Minister. Air Chief celebrates NAF engineers for reviving moribund aircraft. Tension rises as gunmen kill 18 in Imo communities. EFCC detains 10 officers for stealing cash, gold exhibits. Now, wow. Backbiters behind my kangaroo impeachment, Makinde's ex-deputy says, Chakba Agberu Eba. 17 other Nigerian words added to Oxford Dictionary. Emefiele loses bid to stop $4.5 billion, 2.8 billion naira fraud trial. Ganduje tackles Obi as APC spokesman receives 200 death threats. Court orders for future of 228 million naira linked to ex-Governor Orji. That's all on the front page of The Punch.
Yeah, just look at
EFCC story.
Just look at it's not EFCC story. I mean, just look at Nigeria. look at the things that make up our headlines in the morning. It's almost depressing. There's no story here in the whole of the Punch, and I understand the bad news travels faster theory, but there's no story here that just tells you that the country seems to be moving forward or the things seem to be working. No headline in the whole Punch. The EFCC's officers are stealing. Gunmen are killing people in Imo State. I don't even know what an e-border is. We're talking about bandits and illegal aliens.
Illegal aliens. Illegal aliens for me.
Death threats are being sent left and right, between APC and Peter Obi and whoever else. Anyway, let's move on to the Daily Trust newspapers to see if it might be brighter over there. Nigeria to UN, probe Boko Haram's funding and training. CDS, Chief of Defense Staff, suspects international conspiracy. If you watch the interview with Al Jazeera, you know what it is talking about. Federal government hints at new national carrier. We spoke about that already. Expect tariff hike from telco soon, says Minister.
Now what? 11
killed, 31 houses razed in Jigawa ethnic crisis. A driver nabbed with 59 trafficked children in the FCT. And 25% implementation of 2024 budget unacceptable, says the National Assembly. 25%. China approves $255 million loan for Kano Kaduna Railway project, and also a policeman accepts Islam 2 years after rejecting $200,000 bribe. All right. We can squeeze in one more paper and then bring in Mr. Katuba to speak on these stories. On the Vanguard newspapers this morning, states race to build airports as hunger bites harder. Obi, I have received over 200 death threats. APC spokesman Felix Morka says, we won't dignify Morka's claim with a response, obedience is saying. And also, top of the screen, federal government won't approve 100% tariff increase for telcos, says ministers. Wike, Fubara, and others should work with a TAR-led committee, says Pandef. I grew from our Marjorie school to become CEO of NNPCL. I'm not sure why that is a thing to be celebrated. Why is there an Marjorie school in the first place? Businessman asks court to reverse sale of his 43 million naira shares to telecom firm. I think these are the big stories that we can find on the Vanguard this morning. Mr. Katuba, let's start with the Punch this morning. The big story there on the part. I'm not sure what an e-border project or e-border really is, but the federal government's 9 billion naira e-border project fails to stop bandits and illegal aliens. Illegal Niger, Cameroon immigrants infiltrate Jigawa, Taraba, others. Borders automated, insists Interior Minister. We would almost never end our conversation on insecurity if we do not fix our borders.
Nigeria is an attractive destination for crime. And it's a place that's been so porous for many years. And e-border is laughable where you have the porosity of the border between Niger and Sokoto running down all over that place. It's something that you cannot monitor. What is e-border? What does it mean? The word e-border. The word border is not the stretch of the corridor, but it's just a gating area.
Yeah.
So if you are doing e-border, what about all of those areas? The bandits and terrorists will never pass through an official route or route into the country. So it's laughable. Sometimes you see the politicians use challenges to make money. And so when you are seeing a problem, politicians are seeing opportunity to make money. If there is a flood, the average politician, which is the food soldiers, they see food has come. If there's a building collapse, there will be something to be done in order to resolve that. People therefore make money during that process. So if the problem, the challenges and the misery of the people is actually the opportunity for politicians to make money. This is why they never end.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, I was just looking up online to see the e-border and what it entails. They're talking about surveillance on the borders, real-time surveillance.
Which border? Is it the line and the stretch of the border that Buhari said only God can save us?
Let's talk about...
Buhari, a military general, after many years, said the border is so long that only God can save us. It's not a matter of... So whoever proposed the e-border wanted to make another money. Don't forget about the CCTV cameras in Abuja.
Yes.
Where is the project?
Till today.
So listen, Nigeria is having... Okay, he complained about the headlines. The headlines of Nigerian newspapers are not independent of the opinion. They are not independent. They are sponsored. They are paid for. So politicians utilizes all this. The Nigerian way of news and reporting has always been negative because it sells, like you said, and that is what keeps the newspapers in the conversation. Because if they put developmental stories, they might not read it. Because all the stories that are progress, they give them small headlines. I built my community while I was a member of a community, and we built a road, and we wanted to make sure they write about it. We had to pay. And so positive stories are paid for. Negative stories are not paid for.
Well,
and
maybe so if the positive story is about is a story that the government has done.
But then you have to balance it. You have to keep hope alive. If you fill your headlines with so many negative stories and a foreigner...
And I agree with you. I want to see positive stories. I'm just saying that you have to pay for it because you're not officially were you in the government?
Anything positive that even government pay for besides their positive stories, but they don't pay for the negative ones.
So if the government puts out...
I know that this will offend a lot of people, but that is what happens. If you do anything positive, you have to pay for it.
As an individual, yes, maybe. Yeah. But for the government...
Who runs a country? The individuals.
And even as individuals, the number of positive stuff I've done, I've seen it in papers without...
Well, if you say so, then they are not in the headlines, right? They are hidden somewhere.
They are in the headlines.
So you've got to solve through. The point I want to raise, whenever we populate the news and the atmosphere with negative stories, a visitor, when I enter any country, the first thing I do is to buy all their newspapers and I to tune to their local TV stations. If I go to Delta, I search for DBS television. I try to see what they are reporting. And so the foreigner or the visitors, they gauge the mood of your country by... So when you visit Ghana, you will search for the negative news. In fact, the negative news is given a positive slant. I listen every morning across the country, tuning in into different African countries through different systems in order to monitor the temperature, the news. There is something about caring for the well-being of their citizens. And if they do so, there is no hopelessness, but they are attacking their problems.
Okay.
So we need to see.
But it's not like any of the stories are lies,
we didn't say they are lies, but there is also something positive in any negative situation.
Okay, help us.
For example, EFCC.
That's what I wanted to talk. They've detained 10 of the officers for stealing cash.
That is actually a positive story, not a negative story. What is negative is what those guys have done, because EFCC could cover them up. But the good story is that EFCC is acting to ensure that it cleans its own house. But EFCC has a lot of work to do. A lot of work to do. I tell you, the problem with all of this is just the quality of the Nigerian man, his mindset. We are on a daily basis hunting for money. And that affects the quality of service delivery in this country to all citizens. That's why once you have electricity challenge, you begin to pay a company that provides electricity that's supposed to be a private enterprise. You pay the individuals. They ensure that the problem is exacerbated in a way that they will let you know that it's very difficult to achieve it. And then they make money in the process. It comes from government, it comes from government officials, even the private sector, they are also culpable. We have a long walk to get out of the doldrum and where we're falling into. And I remain positive that if we continue, we will get there. But the fourth realm of the estate, the press, has a lot to do to help the quality of the mind of the Nigerian.
Okay, well, Ganduje tackles Obi as APC spokesman receives, well, allegedly receives 200 death threats. And of course, Peter Obi also claimed, that he had also received death threats as well. So it feels like,
death threats, aura for aura.
This is condemnable. The government should not, on the face of politics, pay no attention to be, a cry of being threatened. I have been threatened when I make comments. So Nigeria is charged with political soldiers that are violent, and they want to do well to satisfy their paymaster. There's a desperation for survival, and that desperation is not only on our streets, it's even in the corridors of power. And so everyone is trying to do something untoward to prove to the political leader that is worthy of being considered for an appointment. And so what Obi is saying should not be taken lightly, should be investigated, and government should take very drastic steps if there is anyone who on the face of politics is threatening another.
Do you expect that to happen?
I call for that to happen. If they do not do so, because politicians know that the hooligans are part of their assets, and they need to change that culture.
Yeah, I mean, it's the same government that had, one of its closest allies and friends threaten people during the elections and tell Iyachukudi to not come out to vote. And even on election day, you could see him also being very vocal and threatening people. It's the same government that had, people working in government as media aides or whatnot, saying, this is our Lagos, or my Lagos, not your Lagos, or something like that. And government officials, the same government that had, made promises. Yeah, we had the police spokesperson here making, promises that they were going to investigate the Lagos PDR Twitter account that had threatened another tribe here in Lagos, and did absolutely nothing. So, again, do you expect that there would be any actual...
That's why I said to you that from my observation, all politicians, political parties, they keep them as part of their assets. And they enjoy it when they do so because the political leader keeps a clean face and the full soldiers do the damage. That is not only in Nigeria, all over the world. Even in the American election, as pressing as it is, threats were issued to one another. But we must walk away from that culture, and then political foot soldiers who do this should know that as you do that, you damage the psyche of your nation, and you only come into office because you have a hope of grabbing a little pie for your own good.
All right.
But ultimately, the country becomes a challenge, and you become also an endangered species if you continue in that trajectory.
Yeah.
Okay.
We must, you see, as we progress as humans, what is happening, you hear that the British people have unwritten constitution. The only reason they tell you that is because they have developed to a certain pristine humanity where they can, the laws of the British society, if you implement them in America, you may not achieve results because every society has its life cycle, stage of life, and Nigeria is in the underdeveloped state.
Okay.
And so we are moving towards developing society, and we cannot not develop only on the basis of infrastructure. We must develop the people.
Okay, let's go to the Daily Trust now and look at the big story. Nigeria to UN, probe Boko Haram's funding and training, CDS suspects international conspiracy. Now, this, of course, is referring to the interview that was granted to Al Jazeera by the Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, where he, of course, was asked questions about the progress that Nigeria has made against the fight, in the fight against insecurity. And there he mentioned a number of things that insinuated that there might be some level of international conspiracy. I wanted to get your thoughts on that.
Yeah. Unless truth be told, one thing that has baffled me for so long is that the Boko Haram enterprise seems never to run out of resources. And they are confronting a state that has all the resources, and this crisis is not abating. And they keep swelling in numbers, they keep repeating, they keep resurging.
Yeah.
It means that the chief of the Musa there, who spoke like that, is very clear, and the truth is about to come out. The United Nations need to look at it. How come you have a group of people not well trained, not well resourced, not organized into a country where they collect taxes and have revenue, and they're able to wage a relentless, repeated, long-drawn battle against Nigeria.
Is it the United Nations who should, look into this? Or do you think the Nigerian government knows?
Nigerian government has no capacity to do so. Because any battle...
Has no capacity
to probe the Boko Haram source of funding, they cannot.
Oh, that's it. That's shocking.
I'm telling you the truth. I don't like to deceive myself. They cannot because it stretches beyond their capacity to do so. And that is why it has gone this far. While in the side of Nigeria it's been a trade, that's why you see one of the military chiefs told them in one of the states that we didn't send you here to make money. It's a theater of commerce, including NGOs and everyone. It's a theater of commerce. If you are an administrator in Nigeria, you'll be shocked. In fact, you become so shocked that you'll not be able to make any comment. That whoever is making comment, you will have an inner, will be giggling, laughing, like, if you know what I know.
That's very... I mean, maybe laughter is the only response that I would have, for how damning, these things are.
Yeah, very bad.
Okay, let's do... let's look at the story about the 59 trafficked children in the FCT. A driver nabbed 59 trafficked children in the FCT. We took this story earlier. We took a report about it. Part of the excuse the driver gave, he's pleaded not innocent. And part of the excuse he's given is that the parents have given permission. The parents gave him permission to take these children for Islamic studies in Nasarawa. Yeah. So let's get your thoughts on this.
Well, that's proper Amajari initiates. That's how they easily move the children all over. A friend of mine went to the north to do business, and one young boy, less than 7 years, was very dutiful, was very supportive, was very, everywhere he went, he sent him on an errand, and he told the man, this is your son, I like him. I wish I like him. The man, and before he said, the man said, take him. No papers.
Wow.
He just said, take him. He's my son. So it's possible.
Yeah. On the Vanguard this morning, let's see, Nigeria. On the Vanguard this morning, states race to build airports as hunger bites harder. And also, of course, still talking about Almajiri, the CEO of NNPCL says he grew from Almajiri School to become NNPC CEO. And that's Mele Kyari. So you pick either of them.
That's a positive story. Very impressive. I have been very critical of the NNPC because of their repeated and disgraceful failings over the years and the role they have played in not managing properly. And that's sadly part of the government architecture where everything we do is about trade, it's about making money, it's about who represents the place. So interviews are very good. They reveal a lot. They dispel rumor and they confirm facts and open up, the truth. So the story of Mele Kyari should be inspirational, should inspire all of us. I am very proud of his rise from, such a despised group to where he is today. So we commend him and we ask that he continue to do well to fight for Nigeria, because I doubted his NNPC and I thought that they were no good, so they should sustain the progress they are making. The other story is...
states race to build airports as hunger bites harder.
That's the most important story. In this country, like I told you, if we take away the trade and the inordinate ambition to make money without work, Nigeria will just rise exponentially. State executives are looking at what big project can give me that good return. That's why they just to do gigantic project that they know they will not complete. Yeah. And they go and start an airport because that is in there, in that huge contract, a little bit of it will just turn the story. So, because a state chief executive will not want to be picking crumbs from small deals. That's why they do viable airports.
The Minister
are not viable.
Yeah, Minister for Works did an airport in Ebonyi State that, arguably did not need an airport, but he built one. That airport has barely ever worked since he left. The new governor came in and renovated the runway of the airport that just was built.
Once they get in, there's one going on in Kogi now too. So then once they get in, they will want to do a big, hopeless, unviable, but they just have to do something as their signature project. Well, you see, Nigeria is not so big that we cannot traverse many states by road. The country is, so we need just airport in strategic location. You can do the rest by road. You know, I just want to say that while the state people might be deceived to applaud, how many planes will fly into that place eventually? Many of the airports. What is the commercial viability of that airport? What is the commercial activities taking place there to warrant people flying into that state regularly to sustain that airport? So, well, I'm sure they will be advised, and if they don't want to be advised, because it's like a disgrace if you go into government in Nigeria and you didn't succeed and keep enough money in your war chest, because political war chest in Nigeria is only about money. Yeah, it's not about intellect, it's about money.
Don't you believe that David Umahi should be called to answer exactly why that airport was built? And
everyone who has built an unviable project should also answer for it. And that is to the extent of his state. The State House of Assembly, why are they not calling him? It's because somebody, you know, we do favors to one another. So if you are a politician and I helped you to be, will you attack me? Don't you know that every chief executive in Nigeria is the greatest human being who lives until the day he leaves office? Yeah. Don't you understand what money does in the state? Why is it that the governor who wins an election suddenly becomes the most powerful man? Because he has the key to the treasury and that he can change your life in a minute. And Nigerians are looking for miraculous breakthroughs. And that's the prayer of every Nigerian, that without the work that you need to put into it, your life can turn around and we can all say, you know, that guy has made it. Okay. Has made it how? What has he contributed in work? So we run towards the man that holds the treasury and he becomes the current god, and then everybody else just continue to swell around him. He makes a few people richer by doing the illegal things, and they try to tell the we have a long walk to freedom.
Okay, I think a final story from me, I think, is on the Punch newspaper. We are taking this earlier. Federal lawmakers seek more funding for 2024 capital projects. They've said that, you know, they are canvassing for the release of more funds to capital projects in last year's budgets. Okay, that's the budget they have extended. Okay, and the capital projects, are they constituency projects, or which capital projects? Are they projects that are nationally relevant? Let me even read, you know, the rider said capital releases to MDAs. It's on the Nation. It's on the Nation newspaper. Are major drivers of economy. Edo's, it says, okay, that's a bit unclear. But it says federal lawmakers have canvassed the release of more funds for capital projects in last year's budget. They decried the low level of fund releases for capital projects to industries, ministries, and departments and agencies. Yeah. According to them, the executive should take advantage of the extension of the 2024 budget to July 30th to make more funds available to execute capital projects. That's a good call. If there are no 10%ers waiting in the wing for those deals or for those contracts that need to be paid for. The point I want to raise, this is a good call, but take note. One of the things that is wrong with our country is that the budget is actually an enterprise for secret trades. Now, if you say your capital project you have extended it, what percentage have you released? Because if you keep making budget and you don't release up to 10-20% for those projects, you prolong their completion and they become sometimes abandoned projects, and then they scatter all over the country. So we need to do more. And then this idea that traveling is a capital project in the ministries have to be looked at in government parastatals. Traveling is captured under capital projects. So they always have money for traveling. They only have money for their extra codes. They just, I mean, a couple of them were in the UK recently. To celebrate, you know, a very grand occasion, the graduation of the FCT minister. So they don't lack the money for trips, for air tickets and all that, because it's captured under capital. Have you seen that? That? And so that is because it satisfies government officials and everyone to always have money for their pleasure, for recurrent spendings. But the capital projects and the contractors can be owed. You know, government used to be proud of being a good debtor, that if it's government, one day you'll be paid. And they have ruined many contractors' lives. Those who borrowed to render services to government have been ruined because
The loan and the money they took, they couldn't pay back for upward of 3 years. And when the money was even paid back, a lot of oil hands will be greased along the way, frustrating the entire value chain because the contractor that is not paid will not meet his obligations.
So just a quick one before we wrap up. I feel like you have a perfect assessment of what Nigeria is. I mean, from your narratives concerning the security challenges that we have, the presence of NGOs and everybody who also wants their palms greased, and of course the international influence in all of that. How can we ever fix Nigeria?
Good. We can fix Nigeria with sincerity of purpose, which is a scarce commodity. So, we have been trying, we're fighting one another, we're talking, every day, the papers, every day, look at the work you've been doing over the years, your commentary, your forthright. It's a prick of conscience. As we keep fighting, someone will come that will do a bit, another will come and will do a bit. And inch will continue to get to the mark because we have left ourselves undeveloped for too long. What pains me is that for many years, Nigeria did not pay attention to human capital development. And the quality of the Nigerian mind depleted so dangerously that you can't believe how the average Nigerian reasons. It got to a stage that we believe that a phone call can actually kill you. And that number
I
kills.
remember that time when they tell you don't pick any call from so-and-so number, that anyone who picks it will die.
The human life is so fragile that just a call, you would be dead. Today, I was in Accra, driving on the road. That was when I decided to come back home. And I heard the news, I was listening. I started crying. I was crying because I couldn't believe, I don't cry. I couldn't believe the quality. The lady was talking about how the policeman put him in detention and was actually, he put about 6 of them, and he overheard him talking about what he has in detention and what he believed he was able to pay the children's school fees. Because he was calculating the bail money for 6 people he had illegally detained. And he actually calculated the school fees of his children on that. This lady was crying. Wrongly picked up that she was wondering, something that was that's no more in our books, or for which reason should not pick anybody up anyway. So I tell you, what do they do at the police station? What is happening at everywhere? A policeman who's listening to me this morning knows that he makes money from detaining and illegally oppressing the citizens. NSAS came, we seem to have forgotten that, and the police seems to have gotten back to their original state where they brazenly receive money from anyone who is in their grip. And they are very comfortable requesting for the money with confidence, even in these days of the digital era. It tells you that we still have a long way to go.
So the moral of the story is that Nigeria cannot be fixed, because you didn't answer the question.
I am confident we can.
Because if it is that sincerity that you're speaking about, a
big change of heart is possible.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
Very interesting conversations this morning.
Thank you very much.
And thanks to our viewers. We hope you enjoyed the newspaper review. We will take a short break. When we come back, we're going to be letting you know what Nigerians are saying.
The Minister of the Federal Capital Territory, Nyesom Wike, is in the news again, and this time he's being dragged like I better pass my neighbor generator. Nigerians are condemning him for a post he put out on X celebrating the graduation of his son, Jordan, from Queen Mary University in the UK. In a post shared on X, the FCT minister said he's proud of the progress that his son has made in his career pursuit, and you can see him in the photo, flanked by his wife, George, as well. We have the tweets of the minister where he did share his thought. He said, and I quote, "Happy to witness alongside my wife the graduation ceremony of our son Jordan, who just earned a Master of Laws LLM degree at the Queen Mary University of London, UK. As a father, I am happy for the progress Jordan is making in the pursuit of his career." And of course, Nigerians have majority of the comments that we've seen have been those who have condemned and criticized this move. Their argument is that Nigerian politicians should not only, not be proud to send their kids abroad. That's bad enough that as a Nigerian politician, you're sending your kids abroad. But it's even worse that you're bold enough to show this on social media. Now, let's give you a very quick backstory. In the time that Governor Rotimi Amechi was governor of Rivers State, he had the Rivers State Sustainable Development Program that allowed for scholarship where Rivers State indigenes were sent abroad to different universities abroad, and they studied different courses. It was a fully funded scholarship. Their academics sorted, their school fees, accommodation, pockets money, everything sorted, right? And then Governor Nyesom Wike came into office, and when he did, sometime in 2015, his government was quoted as saying that people need to understand, the citizens need to understand that because of the FAC and the internally generated revenue, they are not able to sustain the River State Sustainable Development Scholarship Program, and as such, it had to be halted. Now, what that meant was that those in final year, they were able to manage to pay their school fees. But those not yet in final year had to be sent back to Nigeria or brought back. I was talking earlier about reading some of the letters that they had sent to Governor Nyesom Wike, and it was really heartbreaking. I read a letter by a certain James, who I think is James, I think it was sometime in 2016. And in this letter, he shared about how they'd been thrown out, a number of them had been thrown out of the accommodation, and there was a possibility of them facing the court because they were not yet able to pay for their school fees. It was a very heartbreaking moment for parents in Rivers State. So right now, they've dug out clips of Governor Nyesom Wike, former Governor Nyesom Wike, where he had condemned those who were sending their kids abroad to school, saying, why should we need to send our kids to study engineering abroad and, call the different courses when we have commensurate and, very, very well, quote-unquote, funded universities back home here in Nigeria. Maybe not funded, that's adding a little much. But, of course, he encouraged these people to come back and study home. Nigerians are reacting because they feel like he's being two-faced after not only stopping the opportunities for other River State indigenes who had the opportunity to travel abroad and study, but also criticizing this move, and then they're saying that he's doing the exact same thing he's criticized. A number of Nigerian politicians do this. So who knows, maybe if Nyesom Wike hadn't stopped the RSSDA, or maybe if he hadn't spoken so brazenly against sending students to study abroad, who knows? He probably wouldn't have been dragged as much as he is, but trust Nigerians never to miss a moment to share their thoughts. And here would always bring to you what Nigerians are saying. And here's what Nigerians are saying on X. Our first tweet this morning regarding the story is reacting to this. Omoyele Showore says, you were governor for 8 years in Rivers State, one of Nigeria's wealthiest states. You looted the state dry and couldn't build a single school where your children could earn a master's in law. What a crying shame, he says. Now, in response to that, the next tweet is someone who has responded to Showore's tweet, and she says, where are your children? What are the names of the schools your children attended in Nigeria from primary to university? Wike did justice to Rivers State University, Nkokwalu, Oroworukwo. He built the best Nigerian law school. I just don't want to talk. Apologies to Rivers people for maybe mispronouncing that. Then the next reaction to that is from Odogu, who says, as Rivers State governor, Wike ordered scholarship students abroad to come back to Nigerian universities. Yet, when his children came of age, he sent them abroad to study. Just another example of Nigerian politicians' casual wickedness. Rules for you, not for them. Just to mention that Nyesom Wike's son got his first degree in 2022 in the UK as well. So this is just, an addition to his degree. We have another tweet, and in this tweet he says, someone like Wike, a career politician, not being afraid of publicly posting his son graduating abroad, tells you all you need to know about our policy. These guys are lords and we are their serfs, and that's from NATO. HOB Makonju also reacted to the tweet, and in this tweet he says, Wike consistently says one thing but does another. I have yet to encounter a Nigerian politician with such a treasure trove of contradictory stances. It's hard to trust anything he says. If Wike says good morning, it's wise to venture outside and check the time to be certain. Then the next tweet says, well, to those asking why the son cannot school in any of the struggling government-owned and underfunded universities in Nigeria, I have news for you. His standard response is that the son is of legal age to make a decision as to where in the world he'd like to study and bag his master's degree in law. Nigerians honestly need to be more intelligent at tackling these politicians. You guys keep chasing shadows, and it's a sorry sight. And the final tweet from Marcus Aurelius, not the real one, says, "Wike to Rivers youth, there is no money for RSSDA scholarship. Wike to Jordan, my boy. You will go to school in the UK. Money is not a problem. Rivers youth, Wike leads, we follow. Laugh, laugh, laugh." Well, these are what Nigerians are saying regarding the graduation of Jordan, but congratulations to Jordan. There's also, just to mention, people have clamored for politicians to be stopped from sending their children abroad. Recall in 2022, when there was a bill that was put forward, this bill didn't pass the first reading, and in the bill, the advocate of the bill did explain that what he was trying to push for was not that politicians and public office holders should not send their children to school abroad, but that if they must send their children to school abroad, they must be able to prove that the funds being used are not public funds and that these funds are funds that they can account for. So basically, you want to send your children abroad, show proof, show workings as to how you can say that this is not government funds. But anyway, that's all that we have on what Nigerians are saying, and I'll get Osaro to share his thoughts regarding this. There's a tweet, the penultimate tweet, that said the argument or the defense to that is that Nyesom Wike's son is of legal age to decide wherever in the world he wants to study. Do you think that that's a good enough argument for those who are criticizing him for his son to have gone to school abroad?
Did he pay the fees by himself?
Eh?
Did he pay the fees by himself?
Well, a famous singer-songwriter says, if you ask me, now who I go ask?
I think the Doc NATO tweet is the one that gets my attention the most, which is the boldness with which Nigerian politicians will even share these pictures.
Yeah.
Pretty much the same boldness that the spokespeople of former President Buhari or President Bola Tinubu will tell you that he has his doctors that he has been using for many years in France or in Germany, and so there's nothing else absolutely wrong with the Nigerian president going to take medical treatment in a different country. It's pretty much the same thing when they tell you that, oh, he's on holiday abroad. You cannot holiday in Lagos or holiday.
Can't go to the nice Warm Springs.
No, can't go. No, those places don't work. So that's the reason. Is that audacity? The audacity that basically tells you that your opinion means absolutely nothing. You also cannot use this as an excuse to kick them out of office, because you don't have the power to do that. So they would do these things. They would, take their children abroad without fixing their education back at home, and then they will show you.
It's basically a case of do as I say, don't do as I do. I have the liberty to be able to do. That's what, And I get a sense that if he hadn't stopped RSSDA and he hadn't spoken, about people sort of speaking against sending your kids abroad, maybe he wouldn't have gotten as much backlash as he's getting today, maybe.
I think generally he will get backlash. The RSSDA is just extra.
He's been in no, it's not extra, it's a lot too.
No, I'm just saying it's just it's like icing on the cake on the backlash that he's getting. Every top Nigerian politician who posts their pictures of their sons or children schooling abroad will get back.
Also because Wike has been in the news a lot lately as well. Anyway, that's all that we have for you today. Thank you very much for joining us. We'll be back again same time tomorrow. Remember to continue conversations with us at News Central TV. We'll let you know what's happening later today, and then you can join the show. Please do not tune out. But now let's quickly share with you what's happening later today. 11 a.m. West African time, we have Business Edge, 1 p.m. West African time in the game. And join us for Brand New Tonight at 10 p.m. West African time. Thank you for joining us today on Breakfast Central. We'll be back again tomorrow. Stay safe. Be well. By the time we come, it's TGIF. I am Olive, MOD.
And I am Osao Giobon. See you tomorrow.
Peace out.